Hello, everyone, and welcome to Family Law Fridays presented by Florida Women's Law Group. My name is Jadlyn Fleischer, and I'm a legal intern here at Florida Women's Law Group. Family Law Fridays is designed to be a resource for all women with any type of family law issue. Today, we'll be continuing our 7-part series, Suffering in Silence. We'll be discussing Part 5, which is substance abuse. Now, before we get started, I would like to give you some information about our host, Heather Quick. Heather is the founder and CEO of Florida Women's Law Group, which is a family law firm that advocates for women in North Florida. The firm educates and empowers women on their rights and the law so they can find the strength to endure the process and end up better financially and emotionally. She's been a licensed Florida attorney for the past 20 years, with the majority of her practice being in family law. Please join me in welcoming Heather Quick to Family Law Fridays.
Thank you so much, JD, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. It is, again, another interesting topic, one that touches so many people in a variety of different ways. So today, what we wanted to talk about and what I wanted to share with you were really some thoughts and really a discussion, again, on what we've talked about before, suffering in silence, maybe issues that you are dealing with and you don't really know maybe what to do next. Or a loved one, a dear friend is in this situation and you're not really sure what to do to help them or you want to. Because when we are talking about things that are going on in our personal life, and certainly when you're struggling, you don't want to share as much. We share all the good, positive things going on in our life, but we tend to be reluctant to share when we're struggling through something or when we are having a difficult time. That's when, of course, we need the most help, but it's harder for some reason. So today I wanted to touch on something that I have experienced with clients throughout the years, and certainly is something that I think touches everyone, which is not substance abuse and drug and alcohol addiction and overuse. We have done certainly videos and in our Family Law Fridays on substance abuse and when you're living with an addict. And so I definitely would like you to reference that if that's the concern. I'm not going to touch on that as much today. Really today it's about, for women who are struggling with addiction or overuse of drug and alcohol, what are your options? Because then I know you feel very alone. And one of the things we touched on in a prior video is when you're living with, either someone who's completely controlling, financially controlling, emotionally and physically abusive, and an uncomfortable, unhappy situation. What I have found through my many years in this area is that when you're in that type of situation, it's very common to self-medicate. And that can be through alcohol and or prescription drugs, which we do see more and more of. And then the combination, and that becomes so problematic and dangerous, extremely dangerous. And then you really are not sure where to go, because how are you going to be perceived? How's the court going to treat you? Many times there's also some volatility in the home, and your spouse very well may have told you, you're drunk, you got a problem, you'll be out on the street if you leave me or don't stay with me. So let's just talk about it. All right. You drink too much and or take prescription pills, the combination, you don't know how to get help. You're not, right now, the situation is so bad, you're not sure you can stay there without those things, all right? So we start there. And, if you're watching this and this is you or someone you love, you know that it has to change for your own health and safety, and certainly if there are children in the home, it's just not that easy to just take that step, or you don't know what that first step is. And then what if, there is a divorce proceeding, what's going to happen with the court? So The first thing that I would tell you, one, it's good to understand your options and where you currently are, one, in the marriage and really in your own state of health and addiction. Certainly getting help yourself is the primary number one thing that we would suggest. There are many inpatient treatment facilities, and depending on your health insurance, a lot of them are covered. Because if you were here in my office today and we were having a discussion and you're saying, listen, I want out of this marriage, I need to get out, but he's going to say I'm an alcoholic. And that's usually just how the conversation goes. And so then I inquire and ask what's going on. And that's when we get to it, because with your attorney, it's the utmost importance that there's that trust relationship so that you can be open. What I typically have always say is, listen, if you can acknowledge that there's a problem, that there's an issue, that's a big step. Because a lot of times you're in denial. We all have gone in and out of denial on many things. But if you are willing to acknowledge this is a struggle for you, this is a problem, and you're willing to get help, that's how we can help you. And that's the conversation I'm going to have with you. Or you can tell me, hey, I'm out of recovery. I'm in recovery, but I'm scared because of everything that happened in the past. That's okay. We can help you if you're committed to staying sober and in recovery, because you dealt with it and you're moving forward. That's really the big issue. That's what we would focus on, is getting you in a healthy spot. So we look for rehab. There are many options in the Northeast Florida area and really everywhere. There is that 3-day kind of a detox intensive at some of the hospitals. And that may be very appropriate to begin, but then there's going to be a long-term type situation that we need to look at. Well, what kind of therapy are you going to have? What kind of interventions daily are you going to go through? And there's a lot that's outpatient as well. That will be, really, it's for you and what's at home. Can you handle that going every day, or what do you need? And how does that impact the family from, care and financial issues? So those are things we would look at. Number one, getting you to where you're in control. You're in control of your actions and not letting, the alcohol, the pills control you. And or your husband. I mean, obviously that's how you generally dull that environment, is through that. And then sometimes it just gets to a point where then you can't stop even if you want it and you do need help. So that would be one of the first things. And that's what I want you to know is, I know there's a lot of shame. We've talked about this before, a lot of shame surrounded by there's a lot of guilt and a lot of, I've just made so many mistakes. Well, we all have, we're humans. And when you're in a relationship where somebody reminds you of all your mistakes all the time and really adds to that, it doesn't help you get over it. And it's time to move forward and move beyond that, and getting help is the first thing. Now, if you then are, we're in a divorce situation, or maybe you're in the middle of a divorce, and you're like, man, they are hammering me with this alcohol issue or prescription drugs. A lot of times we'll go to an expert for a substance abuse evaluation. And we have really good ones because they have, the psychology background or the science. They can really do a thorough evaluation for the court and recommend treatment. That's the key. If you're willing to go that mile, they can recommend it, and then you do it. And that shows to the court you're committed to being successful. And really, this only comes into play whatsoever when we're dealing with children. And you have minor children at home, because that's when it's really an issue. If it's a divorce and the children are out of the home, and I know you've heard me say this before, that's a business transaction. And so then those are the things when a lot of that behavior and, issues on either side aren't going to come into play as much. It may on some certain circumstances, and that would be really case fact specific, based on what your situation is. But generally, when the court is invested in saying, hey, you need to go get help, that's because there's minor children involved, and they're really looking at, well, if you are under the influence when the children are with you, they may be at risk. So therefore, how do we prevent that? A lot of tools nowadays. So, once you take that step and you move towards recovery, there are many things that allow the court to monitor. And it's similar to monitoring devices, when someone's been arrested for DUI, there's what we call SoberLink, and it allows you to blow into a machine and show you're sober. That can be used many times when there's severe issues, substance abuse and alcoholism that have been proven and are really interfering. That's a way to safeguard and say, hey, I'm sober when I have the kids. You can put a device on the car. That is a bit more extreme, but it might be appropriate in certain circumstances. And the idea is, if you are the one who's got the bad track record, we got to go above and beyond. We're digging out of the hole. We're rebuilding trust. We're rebuilding assurance. And whether or not your husband buys it or not and believes your motives are true, it's only the court that matters at this point. If you're in a situation where your children are living with your spouse and you've only got, like, say, supervised time sharing or no overnights, or you're concerned about that happening, because it does. It absolutely does. And we've certainly had cases where the alcohol combined with medication, even if it's not an overuse of medication, just puts you pretty much incapacitated and out of it overnight. And children you need to at least be awake or be able to be woke up if they need something. So that's where those types of things come into play. And the counseling is always very helpful because, for one, it's giving you help. You're able to talk through the issues that led to where you are and the struggles that you're having on a day-to-day basis. Because if you are moving through this and then in recovery and going through a divorce, all right, that's not ideal, because ideally you go through the recovery and then it's more of a calm environment to stay well. Doesn't always work like that. So therapy is of the utmost importance, that it is one helping you deal and cope in a different way, in a healthier way for you. And then in addition to that, that may be necessary for that person to testify, your therapist, to the court on how you're doing. And that's something that is extremely effective when you're doing well, and the court then is hearing evidence outside of you and outside of your spouse, both of which everybody has their own motives and incentives, but really from an independent person who is trained, specialized in substance abuse therapy and helping individuals through that. So those are the types of things that will really help move the needle, help dig us out of that hole if we're in a situation. Not all situations and people have had run-ins with the law, but many have. And then again, that's just another one, if you want to say strike against you, but another thing we've got to dig out of. If there has been a DUI, if there's been domestic violence and some type of maybe incident where the police were involved and alcohol was involved or substances, whether or not you got arrested, but then there's another report, a third party. Because many times, as you can imagine, in a divorce action, who really knows the most about that marriage and things that go on? You and your husband. So therefore, it's the two of you testifying, and the court has to make a decision. Who's the most credible? Who am I going to believe? Which way am I going with this? And that can be dependent on, how everybody presents, and sometimes you're nervous. It's difficult. And clearly now, when we are doing these virtual hearings, I think it's even harder, because there's, there's that barrier, and the court's really trying to assess the credibility and accuracy of what's being said, how genuine it is. So therefore, when you have a third party coming in, it's another individual that can provide evidence to the court. And if you are doing, the right things and walking the line, doing the steps, moving forward to a healthier way of living and coping with issues, the court's going to hear that from someone else, and that works in your favor. So there's been so many cases where it's comes up as an issue. And I know from experience, having many, clients in here, and you're scared and you're afraid that these mistakes, where you are now is going to prevent you from having your children. And that's a very real fear. And and you should be concerned if there's substantial evidence over that, meaning photographs or videos or official reports from the police. So I understand your fear, but that's why I want you to know there are ways around it if you acknowledge the issues that are going on, the struggles you are having, and willing to receive help and participate, no matter how difficult it is. And usually, I find our clients there's too much on the line. It's your children. You may not do it for yourself and your own health benefits, but you'll do it to make sure you don't lose your children. So, and I say lose, but it can get to that extreme. But most women, have found that if they say you're taking your kids away to live with the dad, they feel like they've lost their children. Even if they do get to see them, it's not the same. So, they'll never, well, it depends. I'm not going to say never, but, you could be in a situation where you're only allowed to see them at the nurturing center under supervised conditions. And after time, that will wear on you, certainly. So you are the only one who can do the work. We can guide you and we can point you in the right direction. And we certainly know how to help you get there. So it's a very, collaborative effort that really involves your attorney and you, hopefully a good support system and good therapy and treatment. And that together can, one, help you get on a better path in a better situation for your life, as well as move forward, get out of a dysfunctional relationship that's not serving you, not serving your children, and move you forward so that you can then, live alone with your kids and effectively co-parent, but also in a more healthy way. Part of this series, and the reason we're touching on this, is because these are difficult issues to talk about. And I know you may not really want to share with your friends the struggles and how hard it is right now and what you're doing to cope with, the marriage, the quarantine, the school, the stay home, who's working from home. There's just a lot right now. There's a lot on all of us, and I feel it too. So I understand, and I know it's difficult. It is for everyone, and it's difficult to know who to trust to talk about these difficult issues. And that's why, one, we're doing this so that if that's you and you hear this, you understand you can talk to us, and it is confidential when you talk with an attorney, and we can help you move forward with your life, get yourself in a better situation, and out of that marriage, if that's the issue that it is currently you're in, or even if it's post-divorce. But a lot of times these are the issues that bring up the substance abuse, where you're struggling the most because you're still in that relationship and it's difficult. So I thank you so much for joining us today. JD's gonna give you the information you need to contact us, to schedule a consultation, and really begin you on the right path forward to a healthier and more productive life for yourself. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Heather, and to everyone who's able to listen in today. We hope you found the information today helpful and you enjoyed the 5th part of this series. Please reach out to our office as we are here for you, whether it's another topic you would like addressed or if you are looking for legal help. We're available by phone at 904-241-0012. Thank you and see you next week for part 6.